All right, we are reconvening into open session. Welcome, everybody. This is the August 25th, 2025 regular board meeting. We are joined at the board table by a member of the Intercity Student Council. Would you please introduce yourself?
Chanel Leopold, Preble High School.
Welcome, Chanel. As always, please feel free to contribute. We're also joined by Superintendent Vicki Beyer. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will someone please read the mission statement? Bakers. Thank you.
Okay. We educate all students to be college, career, and community ready, inspired to succeed in our diverse world.
Appreciate that, Laura. I'll read the land acknowledgement. We, the members of the Green Bay Area Public School District, recognize and honor the original inhabitants of Northeast Wisconsin. Our district lives, works, and learns upon the ancestral homelands of the Menominee and Ho-Chunk nations and the current homeland of Oneida Nation. We acknowledge the 12 diverse and vibrant Wisconsin First Nations who have persevered here since before recorded time and continue to be integral parts of our community. We uphold our responsibility to repair relationships, initiate partnerships, and stand with all First Nation communities. All right. We will go to public forum, and I'm getting the nod that we don't have any individuals wanting to speak this evening. So we'll go right to updates by the superintendent.
Great, thank you. It is the start of the new school year, so we will return to superintendent updates, and we'll work with the ICSC to next month bringing you the ICSC updates as well. We'll begin with, you want to click for me, Ken? Thank you. Just a summary of some of the things that have gone on over the last couple of weeks. We began the month of August with our cabinet retreat. Thank you to NWTC for allowing us free of charge access to their resources to have this, to host the retreat. At the retreat, we focused on Portrait of a Graduate and strategic priorities, where each department will continue to align their work to meet those 4 priorities. Next, please. The next day, we had the admin retreat over at Preble. And if you haven't been to Preble lately, especially since the renovations due to referendum, I encourage everyone to get over there. It's a beautiful facility, and the team did a great job of making it look the way it looks. The admin retreat in the morning focused on strategic priorities, and then in the afternoon, David Johns has set it up so that our school leaders actually facilitated breakout sessions. It was the first time we've done that, at least to my knowledge, and the breakout sessions were very, very good. This particular one that I'm showing a picture of was led by Southwest administration, but they brought in students to talk about engagement, and the students did a great job. They weren't nervous at all. Next, please. And we'll skip that. We don't have volume. I was going to share the, we kicked off the theme for the year, To the Stars, and that one too, if you haven't had a chance. Amy, we didn't have volume, so I don't know what's happening there, but we won't show it tonight. If you haven't seen the video, please take a look. It's only about 2 minutes, and it really emphasizes the importance of what I shared with our administrators, that you know, we got through COVID and we needed a reason to have hope. So we had a theme for that year of Don't Stop Believing. And we as a community got through it. And then last year we had Together We Are One, because we really wanted to emphasize and focus on community relationships and engaging our community fully. And so now I feel like the groundwork has been fully set. So the next step is to challenge our students to thrive and to reach even higher. And that means asking every teacher and administrator and adult in our district to help our students stretch even further to the stars. The following week, we had the Wisconsin Community School Conference, our district co-hosted. And many of you were there. I appreciate that you were there to help represent our district. This conference, Diane Delbecchi is the second person in the picture on the bottom. The far left is Amy Fish, you know Amy. On the far right, those are our, oh, Robin's picture's got a star over it. Sorry about that, Robin. That's Brown County United Way leadership, and they just let us know that once again, they will be financially supporting our community schools. And I believe I am correct in saying it's a $150,000 donation from Brown County United Health. United Way. And the top picture, Amy Kelly-Onen, the principal at Howe Elementary, served on a panel. And in my opinion, she was the best on that stage in talking about the value of community schools.
She used the word justice when she talked about social justice, when she talked about what happens in our schools, and that made a real impact on me.
Thank you. Yeah, I was pretty proud of her. And then the next day was W. Penn. Sorry, James, I used your picture without your permission, but
They would not have been given.
James spoke at the event, and it was a great celebration of a great gathering of people committed to increasing knowledge about the way public schools are funded in the state of Wisconsin. So thank you for your participation in that one as well. Yeah, we had some fun in there too. The East High School girls flag football team played against Morocco in what they dubbed a worldwide championship. Of course, it wasn't. It was really fun to watch the interaction between the two teams. And I think it's a great opportunity for Green Bay to be in the spotlight for these types of things.
I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, but wasn't a former school board member one of the referees?
That's right. Mr. Mills was on the field. That's correct. I was asked to, and I did participate in a Women in Law Enforcement Leadership Conference. This was held down in Appleton. The Paul Davis Company actually gave the police department use of their facility. They have a beautiful conference room there. So it was held there. It was a collaboration between the Green Bay Police Department and the Appleton Police Department. You might recognize some faces there. Commander Shannon Seemeyer Tabasca, she's the fourth one in the picture in the white pants. She's a commander for the Green Bay PD, and she served on our Ambassador Academy last year. And then to Shannon's left, so right in the picture, that's Katie Hermsen. She's with the Green Bay Packers, and she also was in the Ambassador Academy last year. Oh, and then far left, some of you might recognize Laura Nelson. She's the current CEO and president of Botanical Gardens. Last week, this is tradition now. Jackie Hauser brought this to Franklin when she was principal, and Greg Lundeen continues it. Staff are invited to come in and over a 3 to 4 hour period of time, they're split up into neighborhoods and go out and knock on doors and welcome our students back to Franklin Middle School. It's a really cool opportunity for parents and kids to ask questions that they might have about open house or the upcoming year. And that's my team on the bottom. We had a 78% success rate on having people actually answer the door. It was a really, really cool event. I wish more of our schools did it. So shout out to Franklin Middle School. Last week was the new staff orientation. Mike Fries and his team in HR pull this together. It's over at another beautiful facility, Edison Middle School. His team sets up an entire day of helping those new members to our team orient themselves so that they can have a successful start to the school year. And of course, the welcome back celebration. Turnout was outstanding again. This is the first year, I believe, that every board member made it. thank you. When we put that out there as an opportunity, we hope you come. Fantastic. And I can tell you that I've heard from many of the staff and some of the families that they saw you there and they were grateful for you being there. So thank you to the board. Shout out to Ingrid Parker Hill, who I don't think she's probably slept. Well, the 2 weeks leading up to it, Ingrid, you did a great job. You and your team, Yusuf, Carrie, Luis, it was a fantastic event. Of course, all of our principals and some of their teammates at each school have a booth with a game or activity for our students. And then Ingrid pulled off, I don't know how many, maybe 20 to 30 community partners also were there. So thank you, Ingrid. Great job. Those are just more pictures from the event. And then finally, if you haven't gotten around to take a look at some of our facilities, Kale's team's been working very, very hard. This is just a picture of outside of East High School. And if you haven't been outside of East High School since last spring, you should go take a look. It's just one example of the work they've done to make our buildings inside and outside beautiful so that our students know that we care about them. And we have evidence that they respond to that. So thank you, Kale, and thank you, your team, for the work they've done. And I believe that concludes the update.
Thank you. That is, I look at this time and I know what's gone on all summer, and it's really just really nice to see. I know that there are some buildings that last week they were still looking for furniture and everything was like coming together at the last moment, but appreciate all the work. And I know that it's really a difficult time for certain staff in the summer against really hard timelines. So appreciate the work. All right, we'll move on to 4B, legislative update. Jeanette.
All right, there isn't much to say about the legislative update since our legislators in Madison are on summer break and committees aren't meeting. I did put some things in the written portion that came from WASB. And so I'm not going to read all those. You can read over them. There's nothing earth shattering. So that's all I have to say.
It's really difficult to, when they're out of session to come up with an update on a monthly basis. I appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda approval, section 5. Will someone please read the motion? Go ahead.
I move that the consent agenda items as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion? Laura?
Before we take this vote on employment of certified staff, I was wondering, Mike, are you available for a question or two? So, just sort of tee this up, we've been taking lots of votes on hiring in recent weeks. It's just the time of year, that's how it goes. But I'm wondering if you can, before we take this particular vote, if you can kind of share, like, what is the status? Are we going to be fully staffed going into the school year? And kind of where are we in the whole hiring process? How are things going?
Good evening, everyone. Yes, thank you, Laura, for the opportunity to answer that. I definitely appreciate that. For those that didn't realize, today's actually our first day back for our educators for the contract year. So a lot of exciting things happening at the schools, and you saw the footage there. The superintendent shared about our new educators being onboarded more in depth last week. Yeah, it's been a really good summer for hiring. We are. We employ between 1750, 1775 educators, right? And our average had been hiring around 226 per year for each of the past kind of 5, 6, 7 years. And we actually have been retaining a higher percentage, and so I've had it to hire a little bit less. Of course, based on our staffing ratios, we've had a little bit less to hire for as well, right? But we are at 99.3% fully staffed at this exact moment. In fact, a few minutes ago, we were able to update the consent chart that you're looking at to vote on because we had a teacher accept an offer, which is super exciting. We have a lot of high quality, or they're all high quality applicants, and we have had an increased number of fully certified folks applying for positions in our district this year, which is really exciting, as we've talked about license with stipulation needs previously. So yeah, like just I guess one small like kind of point of reference, and in some summers around this time, we've had a few dozen spots or maybe even more that we were still looking to how are we going to, what are we going to do? We always are able to manage it as a district. But we're excited because we're down into just, at this point, we have single digits left of spots. So with people in the pipeline being interviewed this week yet. So it's been very exciting. So I hope that addresses the question. It's a testament to the efforts of our hiring principals and the team that works really hard to look for the great talent that's out there. And it's a testament to the work the district, I think, has done, including yourselves, as far as promoting our district as a destination district. So.
Thank you. I just, that's all really good news, and thank you for sharing it with us.
One last little detail that I just think is kind of fun is we've had an increase of last year we had just under 30% of our positions had 10 or more applicants, and this year we're up over 40%. So there's just increasing interest in applying for roles in our district, which is exciting. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mike. Other discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. We'll move on to action items. Under 7, we'll start with A, strategic plan update to 5-year term. Lynn, will you please read the motion?
I move that the strategic plan term be amended to end in October of 2030 rather than June of 2030 as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
We'll move on to 7B, Head Start Program Guidelines. Lynn, will you please read the motion?
I move that the changes to the Head Start Program Guidelines and Operational Procedures Handbook, including selection criteria for the 2025-2026 program year and changes to the Policy Council bylaws for the 2025-26 program year as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. We'll move to 7C, recommendations for revisions to employee handbook. Jeanette, will you please read the motion?
I move that the recommendations for revisions to the employee handbook language as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion? Let's start with Superintendent Byer.
Reminder to the board that we've removed 2 items from what was brought forward at the work session. One is the personal leave language and the other is weather-related closings. These items are going to be brought forward to the handbook committee and then potentially brought back to the board.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yes, thank you. So I wanted to talk about number 5 with the employment for internal applicants. And this goes along with something that I mentioned 2 weeks ago. I think it doesn't go far enough to at least to say that the most senior internal applicant gets an interview. It should be more than that, and at some point, and shame on me unless it happened in the 2 years I was off the board, but I think that has slipped under prior to Mr. Freeze being the HR director. I think that had greatly slipped somewhere. But at a minimum, I think we need to preserve the right to interview for the most senior district employee, provided that I do understand that they have to be eligible to serve in the role. So I did email Kinsey an amendment, and my proposed amendment would be that we would change, we would say, provided the district's timeline for filling a position allows for internal transfer, the applicant with the most seniority within the employee group, that's the same. And then who is eligible to serve in the role if selected, the e.g. licensed appropriately. Will always be granted an interview as part of the applicant pool unless the applicant withdraws. In other words, if the most senior applicant doesn't hold the license, then the next most senior internal applicant gets that automatic interview. And so I'm moving that as an amendment to the handbook changes.
Other discussion? Lynn?
If I could just ask for clarity from Andrew, what you're saying, I think, is that it's not just seniority, but it's also seniority with license. Is that right?
Well, they're saying seniority, it said applicant with the most seniority. The administrative recommendation is to say, but if they don't have the licensure or are qualified, then we don't have to. And my amendment would be saying, fine, but then the most senior person who has it is gonna get the interview.
So,
Oh, but yeah.
yeah,
Sure.
so basically, right now, it is only a guarantee that the most senior gets an interview, and it's vague. You know, the intention would be if there are other qualified candidates, sure, we'll do that, but it's not established that there is an automatic going down the line of seniority to the next one for an automatic interview. This is not intending to say that we don't generally give interviews to internal candidates. It's just establishing a requirement that the next in line that is qualified for the position get an automatic interview, if I understood your amendment correctly. Okay. So I have a question. Mike, can you join us? And I want to know if we have the ability to remove number 5, that update, and allow you time to consider the amendment, or if we want to action it now. Yeah, that's why I just want to make sure that all groups get to hear it and understand it.
I really appreciate the common sense language suggestions. So, but I think to your point, I think it may be important for that language to be shared with GBA leadership. Instead of
Correct.
say, I think that would, I would view that as appropriate, my perspective, but I think that my first reaction is yes, this makes a lot of sense.
So Andrew, do you want to make the
Well, it didn't get, no one seconded yet, so I
Right, that's what I'm
I
saying.
can cleanly withdraw it, and then I'll instead move to amend by setting aside change number 5 altogether, and that will come back later.
Can we use the terminology table, the change of the number 5?
Can we, if it's just a piece?
That's why I'm asking the question. Or you just, you amend. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I'll amend the motion. I move to amend the motion to remove changes to number 5 at this time.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay, so we need to take a vote on the amendment. So, Kinsey,
McCoy,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
Lyerly,
aye.
Gerlach,
Aye.
Meister,
Yes.
Cannell,
Yes.
Minnow.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Is there any further discussion on the base motion? Alex, the whole thing, yeah.
Okay. I guess that gives me maybe an alternative idea than one that I did not have. Because ultimately I still do not like, and I think there's some issues with what's in the non-paid leave. And I just didn't really have time to, I guess, go over this in prior meeting. So I would like to make a motion to amend this to remove, number 6 and table that for further discussion.
Can you be specific? So you just don't,
For non-paid leave, I want us to look at that. So for discussions purposes, what I'm asking is I want us to take a more comprehensive look at that, including members from GBEA and in the board, and look at really the whole part of how we conduct how we have our policy on non-paid leave. Does that makes sense what I'm saying?
so the proposal is there's language that in red that's been added to that. So at this point, you can amend the motion to remove that, but bringing it back for discussion should be a second motion or an agenda item.
Sure.
Okay, so so you want to word that as a motion just? Or
I
clean
think
it?
I have a better way to do this. I think I'm just going to rescind my motion. Does that make sense?
Okay,
And then
withdraw it, yeah.
I will withdraw my motion and then I'll just vote accordingly.
Okay. Others? Andrew?
I'm certainly open to an agenda item about the bigger issue of number 6. What I see here in number 6 is not really material changes.
Right, that's why.
Discuss there with and enter it into the absence system. So in that case, I'm certainly very interested in other opinions if there's issues about the non-paid leave, but I'm able to vote for just the discuss with supervisor and enter into absence system. That I don't have a concern about that, but I support in a future agenda item.
Alex?
I just will add for conversation's sake, if it affects, I don't know that it'll affect anybody's vote because this is an entire kind of package deal to a certain extent. But in case, an off chance that it does, I think that something like this and some of these other things that are in policies like this should be uniform across the district. And I don't think that there should be discretion left to an individual person on what happens across an entire scale of employees. One principal at one building shouldn't have the determination or this much leeway to be able to make a decision that I think should be uniform across how it plays out for every single employee. And, so that's just kind of one part, because the employee shall first discuss their request in writing with their immediate supervisor, and then how some of the other things play out. Those things can happen, and then you have basically subjectively utilized policy, and I've seen that play out. And I think it's just things to consider.
Other discussion? Laura?
Which ones, Vicky, which ones were with, were removed?
Weather-related, weather-related closings and personal leave language.
So number 6 was removed because this is non-paid personal leave that he's referring to. Is this, or is there another?
Non-paid personal leave, as you see, is left in here because that was,
So there's another that's not part of this final memo that was removed.
right, the original memo
Thank you.
had, as Vicky shared, the weather-related closings and then personal leave,
Okay.
right? Non-paid personal leave came out of the district's last handbook committee a couple years ago, and the board approved the current language on the left. We just had not operationalized such a practice before. So after a few years of running the practice, it felt a little clunky. So that was the purpose of just asking for a slight wording cleanup. But the board and the district handbook committee had recommended the current non-paid personal leave approach, which is what will remain. This was just trying to remove a bureaucratic slowing down part of it. So
Laura?
So just to be absolutely clear, what we're looking at here is up to date with regard to these two items that had been
Correct.
removed for now for further discussion. If people hadn't taken the time to actually read this, or members of the public, this is the up-to-date version. Okay, thank you.
Other discussion? Okay, so if I'm tracking correctly, Alex withdrew his motion, so we're going to vote now on the base motion. Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried. The results of the individual board member votes are as follows. Becker, yes. McCoy, yes. Lyerly, yes. Gerlach, yes. Minnow, no. Knell, yes. Meister, yes.
Thank you. We'll move to 7D, job description updates. Jeanette, will you please read the motion?
I move that the job description updates as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. We'll move to 7E, performance contract approval for energy conservation measures. Jeanette, will you please read the motion?
I move that the resolution to enter into a performance contract with McKinstry as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion? Laura?
I just can't let this opportunity pass without just giving all kinds of kudos to Kale and his team and the folks at McKinstry for leaping on this opportunity and pushing this work forward. And I'm just very grateful and I'm excited as always. Thanks.
I'll add to that, that McKinstry was not present, nor was Kale last time, but there's a policy that we'll vote on later, that in the purchasing policy, we have encoded some constraints where if there's any kind of power system, whatever, that it falls under the scope of the renewable energy, that we have to go in and make sure that if there's a purchase that does not fit your criteria, we have to determine why as part of our purchasing policy now. So I would agree, this is a great forward momentum. Other discussion? Kinsey,
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
we'll move to 7F, semi-annual budget transfers. Jeanette, will you please read the motion?
I move that in accordance with the provisions of Wisconsin Statute 65.90, parentheses 5A, the adopted changes to the previously approved 2024-25 budget amounts as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion? Kinsey,
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
thank you. We'll move on to policy-related action items now. 7G, revisions to board education policies in the 100 series. Samantha, will you please read the motion?
I move that the revisions to the Board of Education policies, rules, and exhibits in the 100 series of policies as presented be approved.
Second,
Discussion? Kinsey,
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
thank you. We'll move to 7H, repeal of board education policies. Samantha?
I move that the Board of Education policies, rules, and exhibits in the 100 series of policies as presented be repealed.
second,
Discussion? Kinsey,
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
okay, I'm going to jump in and just remind everyone that these were all discussed and we had an opportunity to challenge them and make modifications during the work session. So these votes are pretty pro forma now. Samantha? Yeah, sorry, it's 7I, discussion of potential revisions to or repeal of Board of Education Rule 170. Oh, sorry, there's no motion, I apologize. Okay, so does a board member have a motion that they want to take on this to start a discussion? We'll have to have a motion in order to discuss. The motion will be seconded. We'll have a discussion and then we'll take action. Lynn,
I move that Rule 170 be repealed.
have a second?
Second,
Discussion. Lynn,
I am proposing this because I feel that Rule 170 has several problems. One is that it adds no value to the district or to the board's functioning. I think it complicates things in terms of how the board functions, and I think that it can be misleading to the public and even to our own staff. This Rule 170 was established in 2002. I do not know why, what the purpose was. It has been revised 5 times. I don't know anything about the history. I don't know what the revisions were. But I will remind you that in my first year on this board, we did not abide by Rule 170 because we forgot to. And so I have that experience of what it is like to serve on the board for a year when Rule 170 is not being enforced. So what Rule 170 does is it assigns work teams. The president is to appoint people to work teams in education, operations, and policy. That is exactly what was happening when we didn't have Rule 170 in force. We organized our agenda by education, operations, and policy. And we proceeded in the same way without any work teams. The rule says that they are to meet 2 by 2 with the superintendent. There are 2 people on each work team. 2 people meet with the superintendent and her staff to prepare for the meetings. That's exactly what we did in the first year I was on the board when there was no Rule 170. But the rule also says, quote, they will remain in communication with each other, meaning that, for example, Alex and I are the education work team and we should remain in communication with each other. We do not do that. Not that we don't like each other, but we never talk about these things when we're not in an actual meeting. There are cases sometimes where the several months have gone by where a particular work team hasn't even met face-to-face or virtually together in the same room. I'm afraid that what this rule does is it suggests a level of analysis and deliberation that is not happening and doesn't need to happen. It suggests that there are teams working behind the scenes. We used to all call them committees. We thought they were committees, but the committees never met. I've even had new board members ask me, how do I prepare my committee report? Tell me that they actually thought there were going to be meetings because of this rule. Our agenda is influenced by these teams. That's what it suggests. It suggests that these work teams help create the agenda. That's not true. We have a policy, 171.2, that specifically says the agenda will be prepared by the superintendent and the president of the board. We have a mechanism for adding things to the agenda, which James has created for us, and that's why I get to talk about this tonight, because I asked to have it added to the agenda. So I think the actual effects of Rule 170 are, and excuse me for going so long, but I want to get it all clear. The actual effects are that it limits the scheduling of meetings because Kinsey has to arrange for meetings of 2 board members to meet with the superintendent and her staff prior to a meeting to give us a chance to ask questions and get clarity. It used to be just 2 board members who are available at a certain time. Now it has to be 2 board members who have been assigned to the same work team, whether they're available at the same time or not. The only other thing that it does is it allows a board member to read aloud from the agenda and call on people by name. That's the only change it makes. I just don't think it's worth it. I don't think that's important. And I would like to just simply repeal it, have the president continue to run the meetings as happened in my first year, and quit misleading the public to think that we have committees working behind the scenes that are not. Thank you.
Andrew.
So among the revisions here that you mentioned not reviewing is one of the important ones is the word committees was removed here. There was a brief foray into actually having committees by someone who is not a member of this board anymore. It wasn't implemented very faithfully. Private conversations were had that were not honored about how they would work. But that involves people, none of whom are here now. The fact that we illegally didn't appoint these what was now the work session meetings for a year doesn't make that good, doesn't make that okay. We have had some kind of a format for long before I was on the board, for the first time of there being some kind of a hybrid where there were work sessions, sometimes way long ago, we called them committees, even though everything was committee of the whole. There was always a rotation and distribution of leadership. At one point, it was just one person for each area. It evolved a little bit, but in its current form, everyone has the opportunity to lead part of a meeting every other month. someone might say that that only means to read aloud from an agenda and call on people by name. Maybe, but there are different, I still think there is value in distributed leadership and there is no harm to distributed leadership. I have been in situations where usually, often I meet with the work session partner. I often was able to meet together with James, but not all the time, and it worked out anyways. When we were a pair, when Brian Mills and I were a pair, we were able to often, but not always, meet together, and it just worked out. Sometimes we switched. If there was something about, if there was some interest in changing this to make it officially more flexible to have meetings of a pair of people with the superintendent, I would be okay with that. But this is about, the motion is about elimination of the only opportunity some people will ever have to lead part of a meeting. And it's meaningful to see how different people would handle that leadership. Maybe someone, maybe we would learn something from it. Maybe someone would go out of their way to perhaps call more directly reach out and ask questions of student members. Maybe someone else would, yeah, there's a lot of different things that can happen there. And what this does, although I think you can make the argument that it's fairly symbolic, it exists, and it is the only leadership opportunity. To take it away simply concentrates power in the hands of the president. And I'm very specifically saying it concentrates power in the hands of the board president, not in Mr. Lyerly, because I think this should be enduring, and it's not about one person. It's about making sure that regardless of the president's leadership style, there will be a little bit of opportunity for some distributed leadership in the work session meetings where votes aren't taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex?
I could be wrong, but I think this is similar to last time. And you kind of hit on it, Andrew. I agree in part with both of you. The confusion you described, and the misunderstanding of maybe what this policy might suggest, I think is valid. However, I think you're 100% accurate, Andrew, in that having the opportunity guaranteed on paper to take part of the meeting, to have more of a meaningful voice as a board member, especially keeping in mind in enduring timelines, how the different types of board members with varying degrees of comfort and experience might come to the board. I think that's very valuable. But lastly, I think the point that Lynn made me think about today that I hadn't thought about before is we've been able to find times to meet pretty easily, but that could be an issue at times. And I also would really like the opportunity, if and when schedules would allow, to have our work session meetings with other board members to see, to spend time with them, to see what they think, to get their feedback, to see their inner workings more, to understand where everybody's coming from more. And I think maybe modifying this policy and allowing us to have some more freedom with how we do some of that stuff and the things that you parsed out, Lynn, would maybe be a good compromise and kind of accomplish possibly both goals.
Laura?
I like what you just said about that last part. I like that. Aren't we about to transition into a new kind of, maybe David could talk about this a little bit around the pillars.
Well, the clarification, the suggested edits that we've already voted for
Yeah.
in the Series 100 to the policy just established that there's an agenda item for the strategic plan.
Okay.
After some deliberation, because we started with, hey, let's change it, the committees or the team, these work teams to align with the pillars, we didn't end up there. So we ended up with just adding the agenda item. I was probably going to manage that part and then let the standing teams manage the rest of the agenda.
Okay, I thought that school board members were going to be part of those meetings with the, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Again, it was part of
All right.
how we ended up here, but there were multiple iterations. What you have in front of you is not that. It's
Okay.
just an agenda item.
All right, thank you.
Jeanette?
if we were to get rid of this rule, would that mean that the president could never delegate a certain section of the meeting for somebody else to lead?
So Jeanette, that transitions well to what I was going to make as my comments. So I agree with Andrew that policy is supposed to transcend and outlast a individual member or individual role. So as it stands, what I, if we take an action on this tonight, I'm going to vote to repeal this rule. Why? Because, and I've talked to Andrew about this, I think we can accomplish the hybrid that has been established before. As a president, me in this role, I've tried and taken very specific actions to be very transparent with agenda setting and everything, and try to make sure that everyone has a role. And that's how I've chosen this. If we do that, I do want to pursue a policy that does allow or require the president to allow work sessions to be managed by either on a rotational basis or whatever. So in my mind, I look at this two ways. Do we abolish a rule for some time in the future to come back with a new way of doing business? Do we table, write that policy so that when we are ready and we have a new, how we've decided how we want to conduct business, we swap out? It's important because if I remove this, yeah, I think that I am then responsible for running the meetings. That is a mid-year change. And I mean, I'm okay with that, but I'm trying to be transparent with the board that if our intention is that we want some distributed control, I see that happening better outside of this rule, because I do think that the rule establishes some constraints that don't always work for people, but I am not trying to somehow consolidate power around the presidency. Andrew.
So if we're going to change, and if the concern is about the pairings of people and the pre-agenda meeting, then I don't think we should create a hole and then say we're going to come back to it later. If we're going to come back to it, it should be with a replacement of 170, or it could be Rule 170 without the remaining communication and those two review. It could be just something about rotating, because yes, it could be repealed and James could choose to, and you might well choose to just keep rotating if people are if among the people who are interested in rotating in the same way. But I think it's better to replace it with something than nothing. So I will, I'm going to move to table the current motion with the intention that it be revisited when a replacement is brought to the table.
You need a second?
Second.
Discussion on that motion? Okay, Kinsey?
Minnow. Cannell,
Yes.
Meister,
Yes.
Gerlach,
No.
Lyerly,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
McCoy,
No.
Okay, the motion is tabled. So having done that, I will, and since we have a standing agenda item, let's please expedite the crafting of a new way of doing business, because I don't want this table to be indefinite, right? So if you're interested in a hybrid, I'm willing to provide my services to help craft that, but I don't want to delay this into perpetuity, and I'd love to be able to potentially have a discussion at the next work session, because I don't, the intent in tabling was new concept came up, let's give some thought to it and move forward, okay? All right, let's go on to J, revision to Board of Education policies in the 300 series. Samantha?
I move that the revisions to Board of Education policies and rules in the 300 series of policies related to teaching and learning as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. Let's move to item K, revisions of board education policies in 527. Samantha?
I move that the revisions to Board of Education policy 527.1 employee whistleblower protections as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item L. Samantha?
I move that the revisions to Board of Education policy 665 fraud prevention and reporting as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Next agenda is, are we on M?
I move that the revisions to Board of Education policy 672 procurement and purchasing as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Agenda item N. Samantha?
I move that the revisions to Board of Education Rule 672 procurement requirements and methods as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Let's move to agenda item O. Samantha?
I move that the revisions to Board of Education policy 760 food service management as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
And finally, agenda item P. Samantha?
I move that the revisions to Board of Education Rule 760 accommodations and modifications in school food service programs as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Okay, that's the end of our agenda items for the open session. Lynn, will you please read the motion to adjourn back into closed session, please?
I move that the board convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Section 1G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, more specifically to wit, potential litigation matters regarding the district.
Second.
Discussion? Kinsey?
Meister,
Yes.
Knell,
Yes.
Minnow.
Aye.
Gerlach,
Aye.
Lyerly,
Aye.
McCoy,
Aye.
Becker.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned into closed session. Board members, take 5 as we go in.
You have been watching the Green Bay Area Public School District's Board of Education meeting. Please visit the school district's website, www.gbaps.org, for more information on the district and future meeting dates. If you cannot fully access the information on this video, please let us know the accessibility issue you are having by calling 920-448-2025 or by email at communications@gbaps.org. We will try to provide the information to you in an alternative format and/or make the necessary improvements to make the information accessible.